a seat, let your heart unwind. We'll sip on dreams, one thought at a time. Bring your favorite tea, let it steep and flow. In the stillness here, we'll let the whispers show.
Well, hi. Hello. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Dear Dreamer podcast. If you are new here, welcome. If you have been riding with me for a while through the consistencies and the inconsistencies of life, welcome back. And buckle up because we need to talk. We need to have a real deal conversation. This is the first episode of 2026. Woo, right? But that means I'm supposed to come in here with all this clean, new, fresh energy, new year, new me, new goals, fresh vision. Let's optimize our lives and crush our dreams and drink more water and whatever else, right? But instead, I'm going to do what I always do, which is tell you the truth even if it's a little messy. So before we get into today's actual conversation, actual teaching, which we will, don't worry about it. We're absolutely going to get there. But I need to tell you about some things that have been shifting for me, right? Some things that have been shifting in my world and in my orbit and in the space in which we are in together, right? Some things that God has been whispering to me that I kept pretending that I didn't hear. It's like, I don't want to hear that quite yet, God, or not fully ready to walk into it. And just some things that He's been talking to me about for a long time that I didn't know how to fully put into play. But the season for doing so is now, right? So I'm finally done running from the things. And we're here. So here's what's happening, or here's what has happened, right? Well, one, I graduated. Praise the Lord. Praise God, right? Like I actually did it. I finished my master's degree. And so I have a master's degree in executive coaching and consulting from Concordia University, Irvine's Townsend Institute, right? So that means, as my bestie likes to remind me, that I am now Candace Camille Croston, MAEXCC, whatever that means, right? I know it sounds like a lie, but I can say that it was an honor and a privilege to be in the program. And the program is led by the John Townsend, right? He is literally the man whose books I was consuming and eating up like they were like food on my plate, right? For years before I even knew that he had a school, before I knew that God was already preparing for me this place in which I would be able to sit in and directly glean from not just his teachings, but the people who he's put his hands on to teach and to even glean some directly from him, right? So that was kind of a full circle moment and experience for me that made me sit back and say, oh God, you have been in this thing all along. Like you've never walked out of the situations that you have me in. And it furthermore continues to allow me to see how he's been so consistent and so intentional about threading the fabrics of my life, about putting my life quilt together, right? And how he's been showing me that every little thing has a place and nothing was for naught, right? I'm super thankful and grateful for that experience. And shameless plug, but my professors were top tier, right? My classmates were second to none, and every single moment felt like it was a personal and tailored experience. Not like I was being processed through a program or like I was a number, but like I was actually being formed and that my professors knew me, cared for me, knew my name, were concerned if something didn't show up on time or if I didn't show up for something, right? It was a very intimate experience and I'll never forget that journey. And if any of you are looking to be degreed in coaching or even counseling or consulting or organizational leadership, I highly, highly, highly recommend. This is my plug. Concordia University, Irvine Townsend Institute. Second to none. Second to none. Top tier. Chef's kiss. Right? But enough about my degree because um, we could talk about that for a long time. However, it's really not um, enough about my degree because it really matters for what I'm going to tell you next, right? And look, I'm not someone who likes to lead with credentials. And if you know me, you know that about me. But this does matter because it represents something that is deeper than letters after my name for me. And so here's the thing. I already had the training. I had certifications. I had years of experience doing this work and seeing transformation happen, watching people's lives change in miraculous ways sometimes, right? And honestly, I love, 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 love learning. I genuinely enjoy the process of sharpening my tools, of going deeper, of adding new frameworks of understanding to what I already know. And that's always going to be a part of who I am. That really is core to my journey. I'm a student for life. I am a student for life. Even right now, I am learning something new, right? I've even gone as far as to create my own master's degree curriculum. We'll talk about that at another time. But I've gone as far to create my own master's degree curriculum because there are things that I really just want to know more about and dive in deeper for because I feel like there's something there for me to be able to furthermore understand, but also furthermore help other people to understand as they're going through their journeys in life, right? So that's a part of who I am, right? If I uh, never got another certification, but continued to learn and read and develop and grow, then that would just be a part of my journey because I love it. But somewhere in all that learning, God used this particular journey, this master's program, this formation experience to help me finally step into what He'd been calling me towards all along, right? Not because I needed more credentials to be qualified, right? But because sometimes it's the learning itself that becomes the bridge that helps you to cross over into who you are becoming. So yes, I have the master's degree. Then that's a wild experience, right? And also exactly what I needed to step into who I've been running from becoming, right? There is a way that God had been showing me that He wanted me to coach, to lead, to teach, to show up in this space. And for a while, I wasn't like when I first got came into coaching. This is actually how I came into coaching. Did you know my very first certification in coaching was a mind body certification, right? Because I've always seen the connection in the mind, in the body, in the spirit. And I knew that there was something in there for me to be able to learn, discover, and help other people to format. But God had to take me through this long trail of like different modalities of coaching and different things to focus on in the coaching space so that He could really form me into the kind of coach that He needed me to be. Right. And so I'm grateful for every pit stop in the journey. And so when I felt Him bringing this thing back around, I was like, ha ha ha. I see you. You're good, but I was also afraid. If I can be honest with you, is that okay? Can I be vulnerable with you in this space? I was kind of afraid to walk this out because it's different. It's not very talked about in the church community, or in a believers community. And so I was a little scared to fully walk this space out. But every time I tried to push it away, God was like, "Nope, I need you here. Nope, I need you here. Nope, I need you here." And so that's kind of what is happening, right? I got this whole formation experience where I was being shaped and challenged and changed. And I looked at my name, and I looked at my name and the name I've been using professionally and realized that that name no longer fit the space in which I feel like I'm being ushered into, right? And not because my old name was wrong, but because I kind of outgrown it, right? Um, that's that was a good space for the space that I was taking up in that season, right? And it used to fit perfectly, like clothes that used to fit perfectly, but no longer fit anymore. You might have some of those in your closet. I know I do. Hi, my name's Candace, and got some clothes in my closet that no longer fit, right? But now, when you are moving and growing into a new space, some of the spaces that you used to fit into may begin to feel too tight or too small or too much like a version of yourself that you used to be, right? And that's where I was, and that's where I am. It no longer fits, right? And so I had to change and develop and grow, and so does the name, right? Not legally, legally I'm still Candace Camille Croston, right? But my coaching title gets to change. But yeah, so the name that I get to show up in this season needed to reflect who I have started to become, or who I am becoming, or who I am transforming into, or who the space that I'm taking up. And so I used to identify as a transformational executive dream coach, right? And that part doesn't necessarily change, right? I still do work with leaders. I still do work with executives. I still do work with dreamers. I still do help people transform. But there's this deeper current running underneath all of that that kept trying to fit into these acceptable boxes. Like, this is where it needs to fit. Let's try to shove this in here, right? Let's try to put this in there. Let's try to hide this in here. And maybe if they stumble across it, they get it, right? The nervous system work, the somatic practices, the embodiment, the way I can't separate spiritual formation from emotional healing, from the way I can't get away from the stories that our bodies carry, and really dive into that work. And I've been trying to coach from a place while calling it something else, right? And honestly, I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I don't have the energy for trying to sugarcoat things or put them in these acceptable boxes anymore. Um, So I'm stepping into a title that actually reflects the work that I've been doing all along, right? And so, integrative transformational dream coach, not a lot changed. It is a mouthful, right? But it's the most honest thing I've ever called myself, because I don't just help you to set goals. I help you to integrate the fragmented parts of yourself so that you can actually hold what God is building in you. I don't help you just dream. I help you to transform the patterns and the stories that keep you from living out the dream that God has called you to. And I don't just coach your mind, I coach the whole person: spirit, body, emotions, mind, story, breath, being, right? And speaking of names, that's not the only name that's changing. Our girl, the faithful dreamer, is retiring. Yeah, I know. She's done great work, right? She's not, or maybe not retiring, right? But she's evolving. She's changing into a different format of herself. She's growing up. She's getting a little more honest about what this is. And so my Substack, my community space, the ecosystem where all of these things live is now called the Dream Flow Life. The Dream Flow Life. And you probably seen Dream Flow on some things and been like, what is this? Right? Well, it's part of the transition. it's, it's part of the transition. And so the Dear Dreamer podcast, which is where we are right now, this isn't going anywhere. It's going within the Dream Flow Life. And so I'm still talking to you. I'm still talking to the dreamer. We're still having good conversations. But everything else, the writing, the practices, the community gatherings, the rhythm that we're building together, it all now lives under the Dream Flow life, right? So that's what this kind of is about. Like, it's not just dreaming, it's not just believing, but learning to live in the flow instead of forcing things that don't fit, right? Being in rhythm instead of rushing, in alignment with who God made you to be instead of striving to become who you think you should be. And honestly, the rebrand, this name change, this whole coming out moment as the coach I've been being all this time, right? It feels like the most honest January thing I could do for real, right? Except it's not, right? Because what we're really talking about today is that January, the whole January idea, the way that we come into January is kind of a lie, right? It's not really the it's not really the truth that we want to live in. Um, and this is what I mean by that, right? I'm gonna talk about me first and then I'll talk about you. Does that work? Okay. Well, I'm starting this year by not hustling into a new version of myself, right? I'm starting it by finally admitting who I already am, right? And who I've been called to be and how that's been called to be carried out. Right. And that's in multifacets, right? But this is the lie that I'm calling out today, right? And and on a later discussion, we'll talk about like how integral this whole process has been for me, like how intentional God has been about me not just talking about this, but like fully living out this thing, right? So let's be honest about what January actually is in our culture. January can feel kind of loud, right? It can feel a little loud, right? Everywhere you look, someone is selling you a better version of yourself, right? The diet industry is screaming at full volume to you about the things that you should and should not do, right? The productivity gurus are dropping all their best content, right? Your 12-week year, your 18-day, your 21-day this, right? Your 30-day, all these things, right? And your social media feed probably feels like an avalanche of people who are announcing their word of the year, their vision board party, their 5 a.m. miracle, right? All of these things. And I'm not here to shame any of it, right? So if you're a part of all that's going on, and I've been there, I've done the vision boards, right? I've got 2 vision boards sitting right here. They can be a lot of fun. I enjoy them. The word of the year can be so inspiring for the year. It can be super meaningful, right? And I've got some words. I've got some words, right? But um and if you want to drink the 5 a.m. juice while journaling in French, God bless you, truly. Truly, God bless you, right? I drink green juice, right? I'm not shading the green juice. And I wake up at 5 a.m. I'm not shading the 5 a.m. wake up call. But let me name what's underneath a lot of the push of it all, the force feeling of it all, the feeling of I have to do this now because it's January of it all, right? Here's the part that nobody really wants to say out loud. Most of us are entering January exhausted, right? Let me tell you something. You're not lazy. You're not unmotivated. You're not lacking vision or discipline or a good enough planner. You are probably exhausted. right? And it's the kind of tiredness that doesn't get fixed with a good night's sleep or a 5-minute nap. It's the cumulative, bone deep fatigue that comes from years and maybe decades of overextending, overcommitting, and overperforming. And here's what nobody really likes to say, what the productivity gurus definitely won't say, because it doesn't sell courses. Strategy cannot override depletion. I'll say that again for the people in the back because it's important. Strategy cannot override depletion. You can have all the best goals in the world. You can have the most detailed and organized plan. You can have color-coded spreadsheets and a vision board and a word of the year tattooed on your forehead if you want it there. But if your nervous system is stuck in survival mode, none of that is going to stick. Because here's what happens neurologically, right? When you are chronically depleted, and I promise this isn't going to get too sciencey, but it might, because I love science and I love the Lord, right? So stick with me. When your body perceives threat, right? Not necessarily physical threat, but danger to your security or a threat to your security, to your identity, to your ability to keep up. It redirects resources away from the prefrontal cortex. And that's where the planning happens, where creativity lives, where long term thinking exists. And it sends everything towards your survival system instead, right? So you literally cannot think your way out of burnout. Your brain is not wired to allow it. And so this is why so many January resolutions fail by February. It's not because you lack discipline. It's not because you're weak or you're broken or you don't want it badly enough, but it's because you were trying to build a skyscraper on a foundation of sand, right? No amount of positive thinking changes the laws of physics. That's the truth. But I think there's something even deeper than the cultural pressure of January, right? There's a lie that runs underneath all of it, underneath every new year, new me, new us, new everything, right? Message that we've ever heard. And underneath every transformational promise is it lives underneath even the well-intentioned goal setting, right? I love a goal. I help set goals. All those things are great. But here's the lie. You are what you produce, right? Your worth is measured by your output. Your value is determined by your usefulness, and you are only as good as your last accomplishment. And that rest is for when you have earned it, right? Rest is the reward for productivity. Rest is what happens after you've proven yourself worthy of it. I used to be a part of some organizations, and one of the teams in the organization was Team No Sleep, right? And I used to be like, "Oh yeah, Team No Sleep, we sleep when we die." Da 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 da. I want to tell you something that might change everything. Are you ready? God rested first. God rested first. Go back to the creation story. Let me tell you something about Genesis. 9 times out of 10 in a year, if you ask me where I'm at in the Bible, my answer in the last few years has been and probably will be for the foreseeable future Genesis. It's just so good. It's rich. There's so much in there, right? And it's so that formation story, that beginning of the creation story is chef's kiss. second to none. If y'all don't read your Bible, read your Bible. Like Travis Green says, don't just read the Bible. Read the Bible. Listen, the stories in Genesis, Genesis, you can get stuck there for a long time. And I've been stuck literally in 1, 2, and 3. Chapters 1, 2, and 3, right? So Genesis 1 and 2, God creates for 6 days light, sky, land, vegetation, sun, and moon, birds and fish, animals and humans. And then God rests on day 7. Not because God was tired. God doesn't get tired. God is literally infinite energy. But because rest was always, 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 always a part of the design. And here's the part that absolutely wrecks me every single time, right? When were humans created? Day 6. So the very first full day of human existence, the first thing that Adam and later Eve would experience was a rest day. A rest day. The first thing that man witnessed was not just God resting, right? So God demonstrated to them first. But the first thing that he demonstrated to man was rest. But the first thing that he also allowed man to experience was a day of rest. I could run. I'm going to sit still. But I could run, right? They didn't have to work their way to rest. They didn't have to earn it. They didn't have to prove themselves worthy of it first. They woke up into a day of rest. Rest wasn't their reward. It was their starting point. God rested first so that you, my friend, would never confuse your worth with your work. Let that sink in for a second, because that's so good. That's good to me. So good. You were not created to earn rest. You were created to live from rest. Breathe that in for a second. Rest is not the reward at the end of the productivity cycle. It's the foundation underneath every single thing that you do. It's the thread. This is not just theology. This is neuroscience. This is ancient wisdom that modern science keeps trying to prove over and over and over again. This is the only sustainable way to build a life. And it's exactly why I'm finally stepping into this work. This integrated, embodied, nervous system informed, whole person coaching, the way that I've been feeling called to it for years. Because I keep trying to help people, or I kept trying to help people build dreams from a place of depletion, and it doesn't work. It's ineffective. I was trying to coach transformation while ignoring the body, and it's incomplete. I kept trying to talk about spiritual growth, addressing the patterns in trauma and nervous system dysregulation and unprocessed stories that keep us stuck. And it's just not enough. So I'm not doing it anymore. I quit. I'm coaching the way that God's been inviting me to coach all along, from rest toward wholeness, with the full person in view. Not because I have it all figured out. I definitely do not. If you are looking for perfect Patty, do not look over here. She is gone. She doesn't exist here. And she can't help you, right? But because I keep running from this call and I can't keep running from this call anymore, right? So here's a question for you. What if you entered this year differently? Not with intensity, not with urgency, not with the pressure to fix yourself before February or have your whole life optimized by March. What if you entered this year with permission? Permission to be tired, permission to start slow, permission to not have it all figured out, permission to acknowledge that you're already depleted without making it mean that something's wrong with you. Let me help you out. There's nothing wrong with you. That's why Dream Flow Life was created. And that's what it's all about, right? I know I just told you about the name change, and maybe you're like, great, another rebrand, another thing to keep track of. But here's what I need you to know and understand about me and about this space. I'm not adding any more to your plate, right? This is not another productivity system disguised as spirituality. This isn't even 10 steps to optimize your life and finally become the person you're supposed to be. This is me creating a space where you can actually breathe. And here's what we're actually doing, right? So, Dream Flow Life exists to guide people into whole life, alignment with God, spirit, mind, body, and daily rhythms, so that you can abide deeply in His presence, live from rest, and embody your God given dreams with clarity, peace, and purpose. Not hustle towards them, not strive for them, not perform your way into them. Embody them from a place of rest, from a place of deep abiding. The Dream Flow Life is a weekly rhythm, and I mean that word rhythm very specifically. Not a program, not a course, not something you have to keep up with or feel guilty about falling behind on. A rhythm, a rhythm that you can step into whenever you're ready. A flow you can move with, not against, right? So every week there's a devotion and a podcast on Mondays, right? Hi, today is Monday, so you're on it. You're in the rhythm, right? On Tuesdays, you'll see an embodied movement practice. There's a free midweek pause, right? We're going to abide on Wednesdays. So it'll be a space where we can just breathe and be together, some coaching, some practices, some conversation, right? There's a full group coaching space on Thursdays for when you need an opportunity to get realigned. And then there's going to be some practices for rest on Fridays in the weekend gathering, both in person and virtual for those who want to go deeper, right? So you choose what you need. You choose what season you're in. The rhythm remains. You don't have to do all of it. In fact, you probably shouldn't do all of it, right? Honestly, don't do all of it. Find what fits for you, right? Find what's important for you in this season and do that. But it's there for you for whatever it is that you need. A steady, gentle cadence that reminds you that you can live aligned, rested, and present without striving or burning out. And so for the next 12 weeks, that's what we're going to focus on. We're going to learn together what it looks like to live, lead, build from a space of rest instead of rush. But this week is week 0. So we're not going to do much at all because we're practicing what we preach. We're starting with permission, not productivity. So here's what I want to invite you into this week. And what I want to be really clear about is this. This is not an assignment. There is no grade. This is not an SAT or a standard of learning, right? There's nothing you need to report back to me about or post about on Instagram or achieve. If you choose to post, have at it, right? But that's not a requirement for this space. This is just an invitation, okay? Notice your body this week. That's it. At some point this week, once, twice, whenever you remember, just pause and notice your body. Not to fix it, not to optimize it, not to push through what it's telling you or override its signals or even caffeinate your way past its messages. Just notice. Where do you feel tired? Not why, not how do I solve it? Just where? In your eyes, in your shoulders, in your jaw, your lower back, your chest. Where do you feel pressure? Where does the stress actually live in your body? Like in your physical body. Can you locate it? Can you name it? And if you were to slow down right now, in this moment, what might that feel like? You don't have to do anything with the answers. Not yet. You're just beginning the practice of paying attention. Because for many of us, and I am absolutely including myself in this, right? Our bodies have become background noise. And so we override their signals so consistently that we've lost the ability to hear them. We don't know we're tired until we're sick. We don't know that we need to slow down until we are stressed beyond belief, right? We don't know that we are stressed beyond belief until we snap at someone that we love, right? We don't even know that we're running on empty until we completely fall apart. And so this week, we're just turning the volume up slightly. We're starting to listen. And if that feels like the least productive way to start the year, good. Very good, right? You're getting it. So I want to leave you with this. You don't need to rush into 2026. You're allowed to enter it with care. You're allowed to enter it tired. You are allowed to enter it without a perfect plan or a clear vision or a word of the year or any of the things that Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok say you're supposed to have by January 2nd. January is not a test that you're failing. It's just a month. It's just a month. And you get to move through it in whatever way serves your actual life. Not the life you think you should be living. Your actual life, right? The Dream Flow life officially begins next week. But in a way, it's already begun. Because the most countercultural thing that you can do right now, the most radical act of resistance against the hustle culture that wants to consume you is to give yourself permission not to. Give yourself permission to not to. To not. Right? And honestly, that's what this whole rebrand, this whole I'm finally admitting who I am as a coach thing is about too, right? I'm not hustling into a new version of myself. I'm not trying to perform my way into credibility or optimize my way into worthiness. I'm finally just admitting out loud what God has been growing in me all along and stepping into a call that I've been shy to run towards, afraid even to run towards, hiding from. I'm doing it slowly. I'm doing it from rest, with permission to be imperfect, because that's the only way that any of this works. So, for now, just arrive. Let yourself be here. And that's enough. The Dear Dreamer podcast is still right here. I'm still talking to you, dreamer. That's not changing. But everything around it, the community, the practices, the rhythm, the space we're holding together, it's all growing up into something a little more honest, more integrated, more whole. And you're invited to grow with me, right? No pressure, no rush, no hustle. Just rhythm, just flow, just the steady, gentle invitation to come back to yourself. And I'll see you in week 1 next week. But for this week, if there's something that fits for you, try it on. Okay? Alright. I'll see you next week. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that we are here together. Go forth and do amazing things this week. You got this.
Infinite wonders, like stars above, a melody of grace and a song.